Boom. We're here. We are here. So this is a huge opportunity. Everybody knows who I am, who's listening, but this is a huge opportunity. Right now, we have a lot of momentum in the community. San Diego's got a lot of momentum, and I wanted to take the opportunity to have candid Black conversations. I'm new in San Diego, so I want to get plugged in with, as Derick said, the OGs here, the people who are really influencing the culture. So we're going to have a little bit of a roundtable discussion. We're going to let it free flow. This is y'all podcast. So feel free to express yourselves to the, we need more of that Black expression. So we're going to start here. Introduce yourself, my friend.
Hey, my name is Anthony Avalos, also known as King Santos. I am a Chocotino representative of Southeast San Diego. I am a cannabis advocate, and I'm just like the rest of us, trying to find that right way through this crazy world, and then trying to draw a map. That's who I am.
Thank you.
I'm D. Banks, Derick Banks, owner and operator of Freshly Faded Barbershop in North Park.
Thank you.
I'm Xavier Green. I'm an independent filmmaker, writer, and a day trader, swing trader, option trader. Grew up in Southeast San Diego, SCPA 2004, stand up. And yeah, just trying to navigate myself through this world, a Black boy through this world, and make it out alive.
Thank you.
And I'm Shophar. I would like if we could take a moment to close our eyes and do a breath that actually helps transmit, I feel like part of what I'm here for on this podcast. So let's take one deep breath in, focusing the energy in our chest and breast area out there, and then out. Another deep breath in, focusing in our navel area, and then out. And one more breath in, focusing in our genital area, and then out. For those of y'all tuning in from through time and space, I'm Shophar. I do energy work around sensuality, sensual emotional exchange, SEX. Do that with couples and singles. And then I have a book, Soul Sacred Orgasmic Living.
Boom. Thank you. Good intros, fellas. So we're gonna start. Anybody just go, how's everybody doing? That's just a loaded question right now.
Right.
But let's just start. How's everybody, hanging in there right now?
Good. I'm doing well, actually. I've been able to position myself in a space where I'm able to navigate this momentum, this wave. Feels like I'm being on a boogie board, and I'm happy to be able to be steering the boogie board in the direction I want it to go in for my life and for my family.
Boom.
Yeah.
I'm doing good. Can't really complain right now. I mean, I could complain, but this momentum is the perfect opportunity to really, really come together with a plan, an initiative, and actionable steps to get us to where we're not considered 3/5 humans. Because technically in the Constitution, we're still 3/5 humans.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Say that.
There you go.
For myself, I'm doing well. On the mental plane, a clarity like never before.
Word.
It comes, it's step by step. It's like I don't know what the next step is, but then I see what like when Derick invited me, it's like, okay, next step.
Right.
There you go.
On the emotional level, it's peaks and valleys all day, especially as a man that's trying to hold space for the feminine.
Mm-hmm.
And I have very powerful women. Like the average woman feels more than us men can even understand,
Right.
or understand or understand. And then the women in my life are like more than the average woman. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so being in that space, I have to know, like you talked about the emotional bandwidth. There's times when I need to take that step back.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. How you doing, bro?
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head as far as the mental, as far as the focus, and the will. That's stronger than it's ever been. As far as the emotional state, yeah, I mean, it's been really high and really low. To see some of the images come out of San Diego where, I see some of these young brothers sitting, on buses, that are, the 15 bus where everybody in San Diego knows what the 15 bus is. And you see one brother with his hand up, with his fist up, and everybody's, cheering for him. that's something that's representative, right, of a community that, I had not seen the amount of support from that I've seen from lately. So where I feel devastated by the hopelessness that comes with another several lost lives, the replacing that with the hope that comes with the support that I haven't seen before, I think is something that, adds to that. Oh man, this feels rough, but there's some parts of this that look beautiful. And those are some of the things that I'm targeting, that I'm focusing on. And like Derick said, grabbing that boogie board, because there's a wave, baby. We got to ride this.
For sure, man. I resonate with all those sentiments. I feel like I talk about this kind of death of a thousand cuts that Black people have, because I think all of us, I think, have been dealing with this for a long time. White people just saw a man beg for his life. So it was visceral for a lot of people. And I've been getting a lot of calls like, what do I do? Like, people are hurt, but we've been dealing with this for our entire lives. So this kind of time, I think, as all of you said, it's kind of lighting people up to see the support. And, I know I've been prepared, and I'm proud of myself for being able to show up the way I am. And I think a lot of people are like, oh shit, I'm getting to, this is what we've been preparing for. This is what people died for us to show up this way.
Yeah, I feel like it's very interesting because I've already been positioned in this space. I've been fighting the fight my whole life. And now the spotlight is being put on people like us who have been doing the work already. And it's just very interesting, the support from the community in San Diego. I've never seen it like this before. And I didn't think anything like this would happen in my lifetime. I was like, oh, that'll never happen. Maybe I'm going to prepare my children and they can prepare their children. But man, it's been overwhelming in a way.
For sure.
Yeah.
So give people just small backgrounds of what you do and how you feel your influence in here, and how that ties into how you're showing up during this time. Anybody, feel free. As an independent filmmaker, how has your background prepared you for this time?
So as an independent filmmaker, like, my background's always been prepared, because one of the key things that I've always found my foundation on is just education, and constantly reading stories and understanding different perspectives. And I kind of feel like, we had that moment when, I hate to say it, Black Panther came out, where we finally felt empowered. And then once that kind of died down, it was just like mediocre. Then this pandemic happens, and then the world is at a complete stop. And then you see this Black man get killed. And then you are really forced to then say, wait a minute, this is really happening. Now my mind is starting to race. It's like, these are the stories that I want to have been sharing, but society is not going to allow me to share these stories. But I feel at this momentum, it's only right to start presenting more and more of these stories out there, because the more you start to expose people while they're sitting still and actually having to see this stuff happening, it's the only time where you're going to start to see a shift and change in people's minds. Not necessarily Black people's minds because they experience it, but other races' minds because they don't see it on a daily basis. But then also you have to reprogram the Black mind.
Are we ready to have that conversation? Because, that resonates. A lot of people asking, what can I do? I know, people are like, what, how do I show up? And I say, get to know us. I know a lot about the Holocaust. I know a lot about the Vietnam War. I know just about everything anybody else knows about American history. But I feel like we're coveted as people. We're coveted in our music, in the way we dress, in our sexual, sexual prowess, and all those things. We're coveted, but people don't get to know us and to know our history, because our history is rich. But it's not like we have bland history. It's like, it's rich and it's strong history. It's not. It's something to really get to know and understand.
Something to be proud of.
Absolutely.
And it's something that's beautiful. And that's one of the things that I feel is my responsibility. Like Derick said, before, at this point in time, being an advocate is cool for this second, and for those of us who have been advocates when it wasn't cool, it's a very strange and beautiful feeling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I do feel that there's new opportunity in the spotlight, right? Where, seeing the protests, evolve and go from us representing us the way that we always have, getting shot at by rubber bullets the way we always have, getting hit by tear gas the way we always have. And it transitioned to the last day I went out and protest, I didn't see a cop. I saw the largest, most diverse population on the streets protesting that I've ever seen. I saw more white people on the streets protesting than I've ever seen. And in turn, I didn't see one cop. Now, I'm not saying that I am saying that there's absolutely a correlation between the amount of white people that I see out protesting and the lack of riot police presence.
Absolutely.
And so for them, me seeing that, my mission now while I'm out there in the protest is not to say Black Lives Matter. There's enough of them saying that for me. I need to hear you say it, matter of fact.
Affirming.
What I'm out there doing is saying, I appreciate y'all being here, because without you here, my life is in much higher level of jeopardy being out here representing. So I need y'all to stay here and be that buffer, that body armor for the rest of us, because as long as y'all out here, the rubber bullets ain't.
It's crazy.
So that's my mode. Now, as far as how what we've been doing, works towards this moment, I mean, y'all, we've been surviving, and we have each of our stories. We share those stories, and then we share the tools that people need. Anybody wants to help right now, if this is your first time coming online and you don't already know about 8can'twait.org, then that has to be your first stop. Before you even get to know me, get to know that website, get to know what it is that we
share what that is for people.
So 8can'twait.org is a one-stop shop for anybody who wants to know exactly how to lower the level of police violence in communities. There's specific data that details what actions need to be taken and what percentage of violence that will decrease within our police departments. Now, if you're not ready to go full-fledged and say defund all police departments like the heroic folks in Minneapolis did, that's okay. That's okay. You're not there yet, and it's going to take some time to get there. I get that. But for right now, what we do need to do is make sure that every single person who has an issue with the last breaths that George Floyd took, we need those same people to make sure that we are not further militarizing our police departments by sending them funds that they don't need for things that are only going to hurt the population that they serve. So 8can'twait.org, it'll show you specifics about your community, who you can get in contact with, what you say to those people when you get in contact with them, so that you can actually have an effect towards change that we're looking for. All right. So 8can'twait.org, follow them up, hashtag it out. That's just the first step, guys.
I'll plug that in the bio on YouTube so everybody can find that. And on the podcast. So that brings up a huge point. It's an opportunity, but defunding the police, what are your thoughts? Because that's a loaded conversation.
Well,
and I think
question too.
I think simple, but I think we have the Second Amendment in this country.
Right.
We have a huge, guns are part of this culture.
Right.
And
Guns are part of the culture. Hang on.
Go
Guns are
ahead.
part of the culture, but are a lot of our Black men, Black women educated on gun safety? Do they know that they should be getting a gun license? I got my gun license 3 years ago, and it was from my white ally friend. We were going up to Del Mar to a gun show because he's an avid gun collector. He's from Detroit. And he's also like a business partner of mine because we do films together. He was like, all right, let's go up here. I'm going to pick up some new guns. You're going to get a gun license. I didn't think nothing much of it at the time. And I was like, I didn't even study for the test. Went up there, knocked it out 5 minutes. Didn't even know shit what was on there. I just made assumptions. Got my guns license. Then he's just like, yo, we're going to build you out a gun. And then we started going to the gun range. And what I started to understand is that, like, yeah, guns are cool, but it's also about protecting yourself. They give you that right to protect yourself when someone comes in there. But then let's rewind it back. When we talk about police, you got to look at what bills and what do they have in place right now. And one of the biggest things I think that a lot of people are not talking about is police brutality bonds.
Tell people what that is. Tell me what it is.
So basically, police brutality bonds are just like back in 2008 during the housing market, when these financial institutions, when a police officer kills someone or hurts someone, the city has to pay for that, not out of the police. So then the city then issues bonds to these banking institutions and then use that as hush money to then pay off settlements to these people. It's not talked about because it's $1 billion company.
Wow.
The data pulled up that, you know, they issued these bonds, and the biggest cities that got the most money was Chicago, Milwaukee, Los Angeles, totaling $1.5 billion, and then the taxpayers had to pay $2.5 billion of that money.
Whoa.
Wow.
So there's
That's a lot.
There's levels to this shit.
Please.
There's levels to this is because, you know, as much as I appreciate protesters and everything like that, but there has to be another way. You're playing checkers while these guys are playing chess.
Yep.
And the biggest chess and the biggest oxygen for these companies is capitalism. When you understand that everything revolves around this dollar, this fake dollar, this fiat that has no intrinsic value to it, and yet we're out here striving to get a dollar here and there and there. Like, I speak with these young cats who come to me and say, yo, I want to shoot a music video. And then I'm like, this is how much I charge. And they say, oh, you too expensive. But I'm like, wait a minute, you're going to go to someone that doesn't look like you to then have them shoot it for like $500. And then you're in this video wearing Gucci, Louis, and all this stuff like that. And I'm looking at them just like, bro, you know you're actually paying me because I own shares into the holding company that actually sells this stuff to you guys. So then you have to reframe the mind frame of being an owner. Before you can sit here, walk around wearing the Gucci and all that stuff like that. Why don't you own the company, or why don't you own shares in that company so then you have a voting right? Now, hypothetically speaking, let's say all these people are out here protesting and all of them had at least 100 shares in Chase Bank. And then they say, you know what? Instead of us going out here protesting, we're going to go out and protest in front of these banking institutions and say, we demand to talk to so-and-so because we're all shareholders in this company. And then you go into the stock market and you dump their shares all simultaneously at the same time. You're now pulling that oxygen from that business because you're taking all your money out of that business that it needs to function.
Where I'm from that school of thought as well. Dr. Claude Anderson talks about Black economy. That's, because we could vote, but we vote people in the cities where these things are happening at its highest level, or democratically run cities. So just voting is very, it's very...
it's a step, but it's not everything.
It's a step.
Right.
But I think Black economy, I want to talk about this for all of you because you're all, independent for the most part, right?
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on how we do this in the Black community? How do we do this here in San Diego? Because we are disproportionately represented in business here. This is a huge wealthy city.
I feel like it's being done already. If you go online, social media, or Facebook, it's support Black business. Everywhere you go, support Black business. I think that's part of a revolutionary act, so to speak. And it's not a boycott of anybody else's business. It's just shifting our mentality to support each other, and then recycling our dollars. And as our businesses expand and we scale, we just hire more Black people, and it just keeps going. But I think it's already being done. I think we just need to highlight it a little bit more and keep it going.
Yeah, for sure. I think when we talk about momentum and opportunity, that's a huge move. And I do agree that push to support Black business, to bring us to a level playing field, and also to we have a corporatist society, right? Our money influences politicians, which then influences the courts and the policing, and that influences the direct interface, right? But as long as we're not represented entirely and fully and powerfully, economically, we're not going to get our full influence.
Full influence, but then also back to what Derick says is that we support Black businesses, but then all these Black businesses need to come together and find a politician to then back them, because in essence, they tell us to vote, but they tell rich people to lobby.
Yeah.
And all these rich politicians and all these rich people and these companies have lobbyists in Washington, D.C. right now, and they're saying, put this bill passed, and we're going to give you some money to take care of yourself. So what we need to do is just find a politician that believes in our values as Black people and say, we're going to back you financially. And you're going to be there because we're lobbying for you to get our bills, our ideas, our agendas out there to the world.
Yeah, go ahead. Go.
I think part of it, something that you said earlier, Xavier, that really stood out to me is about money not being real. And that it doesn't even exist. And that, let's get very clear on some things. Like, I think for me, fundamentally, the main problem is that we have people that are not evolving. people are not healing.
Mm-hmm.
And we have different things that have not ever been helped, whether you're the oppressor or the oppressed.
Mm-hmm.
And when hurt people are going to hurt people, that's something my lady always says, that hurt people hurt people. As long as people are not healing, as long as consciousness is not evolving, we're going to keep having faulty systems.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of the wellness space here. That this podcast started as a wellness podcast. It started like, hey, let's share healing, because I'm from that school of thought as well. It's you can remove the metaphysical, but I think it's a spiritual value shift and I see that happening. I see a value shift, and how do we perpetuate that in our communities? How do we capitalize that? And you're doing that work already, really sharing that opportunity. So let's have a interesting conversation within ourselves. Go ahead.
It's almost like looking at an interesting Rubik's cube of problems. Not with just like four or
nuance,
however many colors. You know what I'm saying? So we're discussing mental health. As you see, as we're having this conversation, layers of this keeps unfolding, and we're discussing mental health. We're discussing education. We're discussing police reform. It's bigger than what a lot of people have been sharing on social media. If to an outside person, they might think this whole thing is about just police brutality.
Right. But
it's not. You know what I'm saying? It's about everything that's happened to us. And how do we get an even playing field from there? It's a lot. It's a lot to take in. It's a lot to process. And it's a lot to deal with mentally. Yeah, man. So I can see how some people can see it as an overwhelming thing.
Sure.
That's why I was happy to get all of us together in this room, because if you're listening close enough, there's actionable steps that we're giving.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's the key. That's the key difference. It demystifies the whole thing. You know what I'm saying? And now this is what we need to do. This is what we need to do. This is what we need to do. Put those things in action and hold ourselves accountable for them.
And speaking to that, when it comes to taking the energy that we see right now and saying, how do we create something that protects us moving forward from the same things that created this energy, right? Because the thing about emotions is that emotions fade. And as angry as every one of our white allies is,
they get to go back to being white.
Eventually, they get to go back to the comforts of the life that doesn't know George Floyd. And so while we have those allies here right now, we need to start having them seeing things that they did not want to see, getting as uncomfortable as possible. So if you are a white ally, if you are any type of ally who is not directly impacted, but just sympathizes or empathizes with the experience that you now realize we're having and have been having, do stay uncomfortable. Stay uncomfortable right now. Stay overwhelmed right now. Because once you go back to comfort, realize you're getting further from us.
Boom.
Okay.
Bars.
Yeah.
So when it comes to what we can do in the community, and not just us as the individuals living in the community, but allies alike, we need wellness centers. We need something that Nipsey Hussle was doing with not just having a wellness center, but having a purposeful wellness center. We need to have a wellness center that's teaching our young lads trades. Now, if we want to keep costs low, then teach them in trades that don't take a high amount of cost. Security. Have our own, have a wellness center that can produce security guards so that, just that simple, not large income making position, but any type of position is there. STEM programs, if we can get the funding for it. There's different things that we can do within the community that directly impact the educational attainment and the self-value that people see. If we do have a wellness lounge that is kind of a community hub for each of our individual communities, you could have something where you have a coffee shop and a barber shop in the same large building, where on a Tuesday afternoon, you can go get your hair chopped, and on a Tuesday evening, you can go listen to spoken word. You know what I mean? Go get your soul healed after getting your fresh fade. So, I think that there's already steps that we are taking in San Diego to try to manifest that exact thing, okay? I just hope that people, wherever you are are doing just that. There's already people who have the pieces. We just need to put these pieces together as best they can, develop centers, develop safe spaces. That's what we need in the community. Safe spaces to learn, safe spaces to love, safe spaces to heal. Now, what I know of is the Wellness Center platform. If anybody knows of anything different, let's talk about it, because that right there is something that we can focus on.
And to add on that, with the Wellness Center, I completely agree. But then also these traits and things like that, we need to start teaching our youth financial literacy. That is key. I didn't learn financial literacy until the passing of my mom. And then when I realized the passing of my mom, and she didn't even take care of her own health, her own wealth, meaning that she didn't know what a life insurance policy was. Had she had a life insurance policy set up, we wouldn't have to do a GoFundMe to raise money for her. You know, she could have left something behind for me, my brother, my sister, but she didn't because she wasn't educated on that.
Right.
And that is the thing about it, is that a lot of these kids out here now, they're 18, 19, 20. Now is the time for you guys to get a life insurance policy because the premium is going to be extremely cheap. The older you get, the more it's going to be, because now you're considered a higher risk. So you get one at 18 for 1.5 million. It's probably only going to cost you like $8 or $10 a month, the same price of a Netflix bill. And then you ride that all the way out. Then you can work with someone who does these policies, to then you can then take that money and actually pull from it. And that can be your initial capital to do what you need to do.
It's interesting you say that. I just had a conversation with a business owner even yesterday, 2 days ago, about that exact tactic. Like that's actually something that people use to create their own line of let's call it credit, you know, to be their own bank in a way.
That's the same way Walt Disney did it. When he couldn't get a loan to start Disneyland, he pulled the money out of his life insurance and bet it on himself.
Wow. Boom. You know, this is a nuanced conversation. It's huge. It's you know, the wellness center space and approach, a financial approach, but that's all comes from Black economy. It all comes from Black economy. So let's talk about actionable steps in a Black economy besides supporting Black. Oh, go ahead.
No, I think Xavier was getting to that with his conversation, because we were having, I don't know, he stayed in the barbershop a couple hours the other day. We were having a conversation about things that everybody can do with the stock market. Long term. Not just long term. If you want that to be your income, what you can do short term, things you can do once a week, every single day, and that could be your job. Maybe you can speak to that.
Yes.
So
educate me.
One of the biggest wealth changes that I've seen so far, and I learned stock markets during this pandemic. I work at an ad agency, not going to say the name. It's a nonprofit, and during this time, we were fortunate enough to work remotely from home. But during this time, I had to take and sit back and reevaluate, because one, it's like we can't all just depend on one source of income. You know, yes, I do filmmaking on the side, like freelance and all that stuff, but it's not consistent. So I dove completely into the stock market. This was the perfect time to really understand. And one of the things that I've learned is that there's different strategies that you can do. I play long term, meaning that I've been buying stocks for since the age of 30, and now I'm 33. And during this time, I was like, there are ways that I can use the stock market throughout the week to make a quick $500, quick 1,000.
That's huge.
Yeah. And it's just all about just option trading. And that means that you're basically playing contracts, insurance contracts on specific stocks, meaning that someone who owns the shares already is basically giving you the right to buy them at a certain expiration date. Just like how you have a car insurance, that you pay for a car insurance every month, and then when that month is over, you have to buy again. So that's what option contracts were for me, which is that I'm buying, let's say, 100 shares of Apple, and I'm using them for a month. And then that month, the stock goes up, then I can sell it before that contract is up to then make a quick $300-400. And it's just all about implementing different strategies that I've learned now that I'm teaching my 11-year-old. And I'm like, this is what you do. You look at the financial records of any company that you like. Now he plays Fortnite a lot. Now he's a shareholder of Fortnite,
Oh.
the holding company that owns Fortnite League of Legends. Oh, he likes to get stuff from Amazon. He's like, okay, he's using fractional reserves. And he's like, what is fractional reserves? It's no different than, you getting an Acorn and they take your change and they put it into a mutual fund. You're making your own mutual fund of stocks that you personally like with a fractional reserve. And then from there, he was just like, okay, this is quite interesting. And then he's like more excited to learn like, hey, can I check my stocks in the morning? That's the type of engagement that we need to start building with our kids. That is the type of engagement that these kids in these rural neighborhoods, especially in Southeast need, because all they're so used to is these people just hanging out on the block, not doing anything. And it's just like, what are they teaching you? I'm not downplaying that because I understand that it's just how history repeats itself. But at some point, you got to be like, yo, we got to do something different.
And that's where, for myself, I definitely feel like I have a very tough uphill message that I'm sharing, because with doing something different, Xavier, that you were just talking about, what I feel called in my spirit at a deep level is like, when do we stop participating in the system altogether? When do we start saying money does not exist? And what about the intrinsic value of human beings? And creating a system that values that, and this time that we've been able to stay home to be safe, and spend more time with our family, and then we're just gonna go right back to a 40+ hour work week.
Right.
We don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
We don't have to keep validating the system like that.
Right.
And I don't know what the next step is.
Yeah.
Right.
But if we can come to that understanding at some point, and it may look like we do investments and stuff or whatever to get there.
Right.
But just if we come to that core thing that this thing is corrupt to the core.
So what you're talking about is an exit strategy, and that's
Yes.
huge, because I think that we've seen even in our lifetimes that not having an exit strategy is something that's kind of tied into American culture.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As far as America's concerned, we never have an exit strategy.
We want to keep you wrapped up.
You know what I
in
mean?
this-
We
this-
always just go in guns blazing. Like,
Yeah.
yo, we gonna go get them, and then wait a minute, you mean it wasn't them?
Well, we got to stay.
I guess
Yeah,
we
well,
gotta
yeah,
stay.
you know what I mean? Let's-
We're already here.
Yeah, man. Shoot, man. We already knocked down that statue, bro. We can't leave now. You know what I mean? Like, we gotta post up for a little bit. So, there's a lot of truth to what you say. Now, the question is, how much do we navigate the rules that we're playing with while we're telling everybody we need to destroy this game? Because this game is not cool. I did see a video where they likened life to Monopoly, and somebody having the opportunity to play 400 rounds while we're sitting on the sidelines having to wait. Then finally, after they go around buying up property and building up their houses after 400 rounds, finally we get to hop on and we start picking up some property, and that's Tulsa. And then after that, they come through and just knock
They
off.
dismantle us
Right.
from even trying to build our own.
Knock us off the game.
Knock us off the game. So like, and then it's, why can't y'all get your shit together?
Right.
Then
Right.
you know what I mean? It's pointed right
Exactly.
back at us. Go
But
ahead,
I'm
Derek.
going to go right back to
Yeah.
what Xavier is talking about, because first we're working in a job that's supporting somebody else's business, that's helping them finance their dreams and what they want to do for their children. First, we have to find a way to get out of that situation.
Right.
And then we start owning stuff. And once you start owning stuff, still paying a lease. After we're paying a lease a while, we have to leverage what we have to buy a building. And once we buy that building, then I think the next step would be, okay, how do we use this to separate from this system that's not working? So I think first is finding a way to get out of the job, finding a way to own. But even if you can't,
It's loaded.
But
Yeah.
look,
It's
but
not
even
loaded.
It is. It's as a business owner, this is a long game, baby.
Okay.
And our community, this is what we have to start asking ourselves questions,
Yeah.
because our community is a fast money. And I would hate to generalize, but this is
Say that.
it's perpetuated within our own community. That's where difficult conversations for you. This might not be a difficult thing to come across, myself included. I
Right.
will never work for someone again. I'm willing to pay the cost of 5-10 years to build a business.
right.
Okay.
But go ahead.
Now, I'm going to piggyback off of what Derek said, getting out of that job. A lot of us get this job and then we become content in that job.
Right.
We don't go in there and say, we got the job. And then you don't sit and put together a board or a game plan that says, 5 years, I'm out.
Mhm.
Because the statistics shows that the longer you stay at a job, the less value you become,
Mhm.
because you become stuck in that job. So it's harder for you to get a promotion or do vertical integration in that job. So then they always recommend that you be at a job for 2 years. And after that second year, you start searching around and start bidding to get higher.
Mhm.
Now, Once you understand that, then you're going to realize, like, I don't need to be in this job that long, but I need to have a plan, meaning that I need to go in this job, do what I need to do, but I also have an exit strategy. You have to have an exit strategy out of a job. If you don't like working for someone, you know, you need to say, all right, I'm going to be here. I'm going to, you know, keep my mouth closed, play by the rules. But while I'm playing by the rules, I'm still stacking my paper because I'm going to be doing my own project.
Yeah. That's the hard part, stacking your, because I tell my friends who are like, you know, I don't want to work for someone. I don't want to work for someone. But you make $7,000 a month. You make $4,000 a month. You build your life to a $4,000 a month life.
Right.
So now you can never leave because your car payment, your rent, you live at a place that affords, you know, 2 incomes of your $4,000 and this person's $4,000. And that's where, for me, back to defunding the police really quick, the only way I support that is when those funds are invested back in the community. Because for you, this helps your children. I don't know if whoever has children, I have children. Right. It helps them, in, you know, acutely. But our entire community needs to hear this. You know, and that's the only way I support defunding the police in that regard.
Now, you saying that you have all these expenses, then you got to reevaluate do you need these things now? You need to scale down in order for you to get yourself out of the rat race. This is what Robert Kiyosaki calls. You're in a rat race. Monopoly is the blueprint of how to get out of this race. You know, you have 365 days. You go, you pass go, you collect your income check from the taxes from the government and all that shit. What do you do with that? You don't need to go out and buy a car. You don't need to go out and do all that stuff. Why don't you say, you know what? I'm going to invest in Derick. We're all going to put our money together because Derick doesn't want to be under another lease. Don't want to be under a landlord. So how do we help Derick accelerate to get that building? You know, it all starts just like all the other Asian communities, Jewish community. They say, who in here is doing something? We're going to put all of our funds to that person so then they can get out, become a doctor. And then that person who becomes a doctor then becomes a pediatrician in that community.
But that's why I'm grateful to have y'all on here, because these are the difficult conversations we have to ask ourselves.
Right.
Because this starts with us. You know this, and I know this, and y'all know this. But how do we have Southeast know this?
This is
City Heights know this.
Well, this is how it happens. So like in the barbershop, when we're having this conversation, the same conversation in the barbershop, we're saying it loud enough so everyone can hear. And I think that historically, barbershops have always been that pulpit, that place where Black people spoke freely. And so I think these conversations need to be happening in these businesses that we already have. Loudly.
And I think, go ahead. I think another thing is to maybe look at history too, or as I like to call it, our story. And look at what the colonies did to the British. Right. And what was their process? How did what was their exit strategy? You know, and studying that. And, you know, they probably did fund certain ones amongst them that had talents and abilities. And let's put the money behind this person so that we can break free.
That's why people really have had a hard time with the looting. But that is a valid form of protest. Affect property and services, affect the infrastructure where the corporatist government, affect that, except when you're burning down local businesses. That's awful.
I mean,
the looting part,
bank.
You can't be mad at these kids looting. I go on my Twitter feed and I'm just looking at them and just like, you know, they're robbing sneaker stores and things like that. These kids, we push that stuff on them so hard that this is all they know. And that's like the fucked up part about it, is that you put all these things in there as distractions while the adults are out here making the power moves, and these kids that become adults don't even know how the game is being played. So then they say, you know what, let's go here, trash this place, trash these places, and grab all the stuff out of here, because that's all they know. They're not going and blowing up a bank and then taking the money out of that.
See, but that's it. Everything here in this situation makes me think, what are we doing? I'm a personal responsibility guy. That drives my everything, you know? So it's like, okay, we have all these systems that are in place to keep us down. I understand that, but what are we asking ourselves? Because those kids, go ahead.
So I definitely have a strong opinion on the rioting and looting.
Send it.
You've been on the front line, so let us know.
So I was in La Mesa. I was there, you know, the night that La Mesa burned, you know. And so it was interesting because when the next morning, when I was first hearing about the stories, it was for that first like couple hours, it was the usual narrative. The local residents of La Mesa, they're devastated. It's carnage out here. Buildings burnt to the ground. I don't know if we're ever going to recover. And so, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking to myself, I don't know if they saw a picture of a grandma who was on Facebook Live and she was peacefully protesting, and they had to pull a beanbag out of her skull because it was stuck in there.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I guarantee you this. You can feel however you want to about looting, okay? If you mentioned an opinion about La Mesa burning and you didn't mention an opinion about that poor grandma who's still in the ICU, who they had to pull a beanbag out of her crushed skull, then I have to tell you, I'm not too concerned about how you feel about changing your mind. That's for our white allies to do. We're done explaining to people who don't get it. We have no interest in gaining support from those who feel we don't have value. We don't have that anymore. What we do have is an interest in allowing our white allies to help us as much as they are able to. And so that's where our focus is now, is transitioning, right? But yeah, as far as a riot or looting being looked down upon, my man from Grey's Anatomy said it the best, man. If you don't have a recorded history of speaking up against our oppression, then shut your mouth when it comes to speaking up about our response. If you ain't on the front lines, I don't want to hear about it, bro. I don't really care what your opinion is.
Right.
Come catch some rubber bullets with us. Come
Exactly.
catch some gas cans to the face. Come get your nose ripped off. Then talk to somebody about whether or not a building should get broken windows.
I love that. And one thing, Eric, that you were asking about the responsibility piece, I feel like that's where what my contribution and what I would like to see is, like, as far as emotional management and mastery. Like in traditional Chinese medicine, they say that the anger and frustration is held in the liver. And if we can connect with our breath and learn we can actually start to let those emotions go. And that's the work that I do with people. And I mean, it gets to the place where when you start to transmute those emotions, it becomes orgasmic. Yeah. The person doesn't even have to be touching. We go into an orgasmic state. And this is deep sciences from ancient Kemet or Egypt, ancient India, ancient Chinese stuff or whatever, breath work, Qigong. And that's what I feel like if we take the responsibility, like, okay, before I even go out to do this riot or this protest, let me make sure I'm clear. We have 5 people in closing out on that theme. If the clerk or the owner of the business, both of them I think were Arab, or the cops that were standing there, the one that was in the frame, the Asian guy that was just standing there, or the cop that had his knee on George Floyd's neck, or George Floyd. If any one of those people had been doing the inner work on their emotions, that day might have went different.
That's kind of what this podcast has become about, is an emotional wellness and getting to know yourself, getting intimate with yourself. And I think it all ties to education for me. People need to hear, like, what a recovering, healthy Black man looks like. Right. Because they assume we're all broken. Right. They assume we're all broken, but it needs to be cool and popular for Black men to be emotionally healthy. But it's work. That's humility. That's a huge one. Leveling your pride and saying, I'm not the fuck okay. I'm not doing good right now. Right. And then taking a look inward. For me, that goes back to personal responsibility, being healthy within yourself. You got to own that. And difficult Black conversations, projecting it outward. You're doing this to me. You're doing this to me. I need to work on myself, because that is how I navigate my interface with the world. Right. That's the lens I look through.
So with that, I definitely vibe with that, bro. Like, we can only go as far as we've done our personal work. You know what I mean? Like, we have to dig inside. We have to, because me personally, I'm not nearly as effective right now as I'm going to be. You know what I mean? Tomorrow or the next day. And I only know that because of how little effectiveness I possessed yesterday. And every day I'm working at, what didn't I bring to the table? What did I bring to the table that I shouldn't have? You know what I mean? And ultimately, it's okay for me to love the imperfect, flawed, always wanting to be perfect, and then all of us are individual. And it's okay for all of us to have trauma. It's okay for all of us to feel like, man, there was a point in time where I didn't see the value in my life, and I allowed society to place that blanket.
We start believing,
Right.
We start believing the shit we're taught.
And it's okay to have
okay.
been caught up in that, is what I'm saying. And it's okay for us brothers to give each other the space to not know.
Without being judged.
Right. We gotta create safe space for each other first and foremost. And that is something that starts in the mind. You create a safe space to forgive yourself for being weak, the times that you were weak, for not feeling like you absolutely stood up and was the strongest black man or black woman that you, or just person that you could have been at that moment. Yeah, forgive yourself for your failures. And then remember that you still got to celebrate your successes too. You know, if you beating yourself up because you did something wrong, then you better be patting the hell out your back because you did something right.
My boy says it all the time. He's like, if you're gonna blame, you know, pride in reverse. If you're gonna be mad at yourself, you gotta also love yourself in equal. You know, you have to be responsible for the great shit you did. If you're gonna blame yourself,
that's a heavy thing for me, because sometimes I feel congratulated for things that I think that I should be doing, like off top. And I feel weird when somebody says thank you for doing that, and I to me it's an obligation.
Obligated,
right? I feel obligated to expose young people to the arts. You know what I'm saying? So if I have some artwork up in the shop, or I have a live musician playing that, I feel like that's my obligation, right? When somebody says thank you for doing that, it's kind of it affects me in a way where I'm like, yo, I don't know if I should be taking this, and it's difficult for me to be in a place of gratitude sometimes. Also, it's hard for me to spend money frivolously. Like, I'll make some money and I know that I'm still doing the right thing, but even the money that I allocate to things that I deem are fun or necessary, I still feel like it feels like I'm eating while the person next to me is starving.
Do you think that goes on top of the oppressive system, where you even feel bad for doing good?
Right.
Even
no doubt.
This year is the first year I celebrated my birthday in 10 years.
Whoa.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so many people I've lost people around me. So I'm dealing with that. I'm like, dang, these people don't even have birthdays anymore. I'm over here celebrating. You know, I've just been in a weird space when it comes to those things.
So are you talking about, because what it sounds like is something that we all feel very strongly in the Black community, and it is a culture of survivor's remorse. Like all of us who are both very privileged and very grateful that we've survived to the age that we have, are also feeling guilty because of all the people who we knew that didn't.
No doubt.
You know what I mean?
For sure. That's why I think it's important for these conversations to be had, because we got to be loud about it. Because for me, as a recovering person,
right,
I have 20 plus friends who have died in that world.
Space.
So I loudly talk about this recovery shit because they don't get to, and I get to tell deep stories about how dark this shit is and insidious it is, and also tell the deep stories about the racism and the bullshit I dealt with in white spaces, and still in white spaces, being a business person in San Diego. You're dealing with that. So we got to be loud, man. I really fuck with that, because so many people, I was telling you guys earlier, my family works within this system. There's people who, in Southeast, there's people in City Heights who will never get to talk on a microphone and do this. And we get to do that for them. So celebrate your fucking success, bro. You're a cultural institution.
Yeah.
No doubt. But I just feel apprehensive going into that. And perhaps Shophar could share some of like a technique or something that we could do when we're going out protesting, or we're going out our daily lives. What do we do to center ourselves so that we can be in the best possible headspace, best place with our emotional bodies as we go about?
Yeah, share that.
It all starts with the breath. It all starts with bringing our awareness into this moment, into alignment, and that our first breath to our last breath, and that hyphen in between on the tombstone. Our life is that little hyphen that's filled with breath. And when the good stuff happens, or when the trauma happened, the one thing that was happening for all of us in that moment is that we were breathing.
That's why I'm such a proponent of meditation. You controlling the breath, spending time in silence. And, for a long time, I thought I had answers, and then I got humbled by life, and I realized I have no answers. And then where I started solving problems, getting real answers, was in the silence and in the breath. I was like, oh shit, I know how to handle situations that used to baffle me by spending time in silence. But we gotta share that We got to share that with people. That's a huge one. Teach your children emotional regulation.
Absolutely.
The best way to teach a child emotional regulations is that they need to detach from these phones. We live in this society where we have to, first thing we wake up is we grab our phones.
I do it too, man.
Yeah. You know, I'm a fault of that, but I'm a fault of that for not being on social media. I'm on the fault of it of like, this is the plays I'm about to make in the stock market. Because I have to be up at 5 a.m.
to hit the market.
Hit the market at 6:30, but I'm pre-gaming. But at 5 a.m., I get my son up, we go and meditate for a quick 15, 20 minutes. And then we come back and then we make breakfast. I do my pre-markets, hit on my plays at 6:30 in the morning to 8 a.m. and I'm done for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And then it's more so now with him, making sure he's doing the things that he needs to do. But then it also is it has to be a household thing.
Yep, culture.
It can't be just you do it, because then if you do it, but then my wife doesn't do it, then my son sees the inconsistency in it and the contradictory of it. And he's brought that up numerous times where he's like, well, my mom doesn't do this. Well, I'm not your mom. But I'm explaining to you the purpose of this. So these kids need to detach from a phone, because at the end of the day, unless you're not using the phone what it's intended to be, which is make phone calls or communicate or even use it as a business, you have the opportunity to start a business from your phone. But I don't think that they learn that. They learn, these fucking TikToks.
Immediate gratification.
The immediate gratification. I got to make a dance video on fucking TikTok. Yeah. But then I'm like, detached from all that stuff, because the more and more the system understands who you are, and then that information, that data goes to the host. It doesn't go to you. It goes to the host. Yeah. The host then knows how to then hit these nerve points in your mind psychologically to get you to buy something, to get you to, react to something. But once you understand that you're playing in a system, and then you learn how to detach from that system, then you become more clearer, because your mind is constantly racing. You need to slow it down.
First, we need to be shown that the matrix exists before we can unplug from it.
Yeah.
I love what you're saying there, Xavier, because, getting up at 5 a.m., to in that regimen and everything. But what you two brothers were saying too, you're doing that with an exit strategy, so that we one day don't have to do that anymore, because we don't need to keep working these 40+ hour work weeks and everything. There's a billionaire by the name of Carlos Slim. He was saying that he wanted to actually stop the work week and go down to 20 hours a week. If we can figure that out, so we can have more time with our family. And one other thing is that the current system of go and ambition and everything is burning our people out, especially our feminine, especially our women. Like when people come to me and they get on a massage table and the women come and everything, and the adrenal fatigue and the stuff that's manifesting in their thyroid glands, and the ovaries and their womb space, like it's killing us to be the stress levels. And the cortisol coming from our kidneys going on our way to a job that we don't even want to go to.
Yeah. For me in the wellness space here, it's so foreign to our community, man. And I took all of last year as a campaign to just promote that in the Black community, wellness space, but it takes so much introspection to say that I'm not okay, which that's challenging. It's challenging to say, I'm working too much. I got families to feed. I'm working too much. I got to invest in my health, because if my health and wellness is not my priority, I'm not showing up with integrity at my job for my kids. Nothing. If I'm not taking care of myself, I'm not showing up the way. But that's so foreign to us.
What's tough about that is that it's a catch-22, right? Because society it's not a fad to have more than one job. For a lot of people, it's a necessity. The fact is that the day and age of one income being able to provide a white picket fence in a home, as long as you guys all kept your nose clean, those days are gone. That for the majority of Americans, that reality doesn't exist. So there's new pressures now that the old generation understands but hasn't quite adjusted to yet. And so I think that one of the toughest things for us is getting everybody to say to connect the dots, right? We understand that we need more time to be introspective. but we don't make the connection that can only happen when we're actually paying people a livable wage so that they're not forced to get
Right.
2 jobs and a side hustle just to be able to provide for their families, right? So there is that element of it. Now that is tied into some of the other things that we're talking about as far as buying back the block, as far as, making sure that our economics are not just going to Walmart because that's the cheapest spot to buy. You know what I'm saying? Making sure that we are taking a little bit more of a hit to spend locally because we understand the mission. We understand that it's bigger than just the $1.20 that we're going to save. And once we start looking at that $1.20 that we're spending more as an investment in our children, every time you spend with a person of color, somebody who they understand what we're up against, you're investing in your kid's future. And so once we start getting that across to people, then the paradigm starts shifting, right? Once we say, look, we understand that as a culture, we're trapped to our phones. We're stuck to our phones. But we also understand that it's as healthy as eating fried chicken every day. So no matter what your reason is, no matter how, I get it. You got a chicken coop in the back. You love chickens. You've been, you ain't got nothing to eat but chickens. So you're going to fry you up some chicken. I get it. Everybody has a good reason to be on their phones.
Yeah.
That doesn't make it any safer. It doesn't make it any better for society. It doesn't make it any better for the culture. It doesn't make it any better for what our kids see from us. So no matter what we say, our kids are watching what we do.
Yep.
And if we want them to get off their phones,
We got to get off our.
you already know.
Right.
So that's tough because, like you said, our money's tied into that. So now we're cutting into a finance economic conversation. So it is very complicated. It is that multidimensional Rubik's Cube, but it is something that we cannot just stop here and be like, ooh, that's uncomfortable. Yeah, maybe let me just go back to what I've been doing. Nah, we have to say, okay, I'm only on my phone when my son's not seeing me. You know what I'm saying? Or I'm limited in the amount of time that I'm on my phone around my son so that he knows my time with him is much more of a priority than any economic means that I could be bringing to the table, because that's my business to handle as a man, not to be interfered with my time with my darling son and daughters.
I love that.
You know what I'm saying?
That's real. We're going to get my man to his son's graduation.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of which.
He's invested in his child. But let's finish
This
with...
conversation is so good.
I told you this is going to be so easy. It flew by, man.
Right.
Flew
Wait,
by
what time
hour
we got?
plus. So let's finish with some closing statements and plug whatever. Plug anything. Plug resources where people can find out about economic freedom. So feel free, everybody, go ahead, take your turns, plug anywhere. Go.
We rock
All
paper,
right,
scissors.
all right. So for me, again, it's Shophar. And in closing out, the energy work, the breath work, Qigong, which is Chinese for breath work or breath discipline. And I'm doing a focus now on racism, about how we can move through the organ system, through our kidneys, through our liver, our spleen, our kidneys, our heart, and our lungs, and how emotions are trapped in those different organ systems, and how we can use that. We can use different breathing patterns and stuff to actually heal racism. Racism is actually an acronym. Is R for, the A is for awareness, and then bringing that awareness to the other things. R for racism, C for classism, I for intellectualism, S for sexism, and M for materialism. And so that's my focus right now.
Bars.
Dang, man. How do you top that? As far as I think some actionable steps that we can do, I think as these community leaders, they need to start putting together these workshop for youth, teaching them about, how to start an LLC. I think that's one of the biggest things that we as a community don't realize, is that it's about ownership. If you want to have some skin in this game, you're playing against families.
Yeah.
The Walter family, the Chase family, the Rockefeller family. These are families you're battling. You're not just battling a corporation, you're battling a family.
Wow.
So once you understand that you're battling a family, it is time for you to then get a family of your own to play in this game. And that really will then shift the paradigm as to how you start to approach things. As far as education goes, I'm readily available. Like, you can find me on Instagram or shoot me an email XLV Films on Instagram, XLV Green at Gmail. And if you really want to learn about like different financial strategies that you can take small steps, you don't have to, feel that you need $1,000, $2,000. It can be as little as $100, and I can show you step by step how you can grow that $100, into excessive amount of money. Like I have a Robinhood account. I started off with 500. Today I broke $4,000.
I need to hit you up, bro.
Yeah, me too.
And it's just little things like that. And I didn't allow myself to get my emotions in this, because when you allow your emotions into the stock market, that's where you hit those panics. And you have to understand that you are a retailer and you're playing against hedge funds. And when you know how a hedge fund and an institutional system works, you know how you can ride their wave and then get max profits and get out before it dumps.
You got a workshop. That's a workshop idea right there. I'm sitting in on that workshop.
I love it.
Go ahead, Derick.
Freshlyfaded.com. If you want to schedule an appointment, you could always stop in. The barbershop is a community resource. It is also a sanctuary if you want to be heard. And it's a place where your voice isn't going to be quieted. So please support that. WeBuyBlack.com. That way, anything that you can think of that you need to purchase, there's a website that already exists that has a lot of people on there. My wife and her sisters have a company, Dirt Don't Hurt. They
I use that.
It's a charcoal-based product company
Man.
for all your needs.
Keep the mouth clean.
Congratulations to them because they just got into Whole Foods.
Oh,
Nice.
nice.
Yeah,
Very cool.
proud of them. Yeah, thank
There
you.
you go.
They need to get out of Whole Foods. So.
Well, that's another conversation.
Yeah.
My man.
Next
That's
episode.
another
Next
conversation.
episode.
Take us out, my friend.
So, of course, 8can'twait.org for all those who want to help, can't be on the front lines. They see the pictures and they're not about that life. I get it. It's scary out there. No doubt. When you see the power that's in front of you and you recognize what you're working with to defend yourself, it's scary. So, 8can'twait.org. If that isn't happening, get with your local community members. See how you can donate PPE to the frontliners. We need helmets. We need masks, because as soon as that tear gas hits those masks, you got to throw them away. They're not usable anymore, no matter what type of mask you have. So you definitely need that donated. Elbow pads, knee pads with the bicep coverings, just to, protect people's bodies from projectiles being shot at. Definitely things that we need on the front line. So, those are ways that you can help. For me, all I can say is, everybody, we've been doing this for a while, man. And all we trying to do is make sure that the ancestors looking down at us are smiling, while we in these trenches and pushing this hard line forward. So, in whatever way we have to get it, we have to get it. There is no right way to protest. There is no wrong way to protest. It's just letting it be known. We're not asking anymore. We're here and we're coming. So the way I feel it is, you can either get on the train or you can beat the tracks.
Ooh. Yo, drop bars. This is one of the easiest. This is one of the easiest podcasts we've ever done. But we're gonna wrap it up. I thank you all for coming on. We could do this again in a few months and check in. I think I'd like to have all of you on individually and let us each go deeper on who we are, what we're about. But man, this is an amazing opportunity.
Yo,
Nice,
Thanks.
man.
Thank you.
appreciate
Yeah,
it,
thanks for
man.
having
Thank
us.
you for having us. This was awesome.
Yes, sir. We're out.
Yo.
Peace.
Just circling above, they all want a piece, but they don't even know